Emily Hayes never saw it coming, and Tyler Brooks never thought it would go this far yet. On a sweltering South Carolina night, a bitter love triangle, a circle of betrayal, and 9 teenagers' deadly pact turned a quiet town into the scene of one of its most shocking murders. On a humid July evening in the small town of Brookfield, South Carolina, the kind of place where front porches were more common than streetlights, something happened that would shatter its quiet reputation forever. The news broke just before midnight. A teenage girl had been found dead in a wooded patch of land behind an abandoned gas station on the edge of town. The girl was quickly identified as 17-year-old Emily Hayes, a bright student with a promising future, known for her competitive streak on the soccer field and her habit of smiling through almost anything. But that night, there was no smile. No laughter, only a chilling scene that left even the most seasoned officers stunned. The initial details were scarce, but they were enough to spread like wildfire through text messages, late-night phone calls, and whispered conversations. Within hours, the rumor mill churned at full speed. Parents double-checked their children's whereabouts, and teenagers scrolled endlessly through social media, trying to piece together what had happened. Emily's body had been discovered by a truck driver who had pulled into the gas station's cracked parking lot to rest. At first, he thought he had spotted discarded clothing near the tree line, but as he approached, the sight froze him in place. She was lying on the ground, partially hidden by the shadows, with signs of a violent struggle all around her. The driver called 911, his voice trembling as he tried to explain what he was seeing. When law enforcement arrived, they immediately knew they were dealing with a homicide. Emily's injuries suggested she had fought desperately to survive, but the secluded location meant there had been no witnesses nearby to intervene. For a town unaccustomed to violent crime, the very idea that such an attack could happen to one of their own was incomprehensible. The scene was cordoned off, floodlights casting an eerie glow over the scattered leaves and broken branches. Detectives began their careful work, collecting evidence: shoe prints, tire tracks, fragments of torn fabric that hinted at more than one person being involved. By dawn, word had reached nearly every household. Emily Hayes wasn't just a victim. She was someone's daughter, someone's teammate, someone's best friend. The grief was immediate, but so was the confusion. Why Emily? And why here, in this lonely, forgotten corner of Brookfield? The questions hung heavy over the town as investigators began to realize this was not a random act of violence. It was personal, deliberate, and likely rooted in a tangled web of teenage relationships. What no one knew yet was just how many people had played a role in the deadly events that night, or how far the truth would reach. Detectives wasted no time retracing Emily's final hours, determined to understand what had led her to that dark stretch of woods. Their first step was to examine her social life, which quickly revealed a storm brewing beneath the surface. Emily had been dating Tyler Brooks, an 18-year-old from a neighboring high school, for nearly 6 months. By all accounts, their relationship had been intense but rocky, marked by frequent breakups and dramatic reconciliations. About 3 weeks before her death, Emily had ended things for good. What she didn't expect was how quickly Tyler would move on, especially with Madison Clarke, one of Emily's closest friends. Madison and Emily had grown up together, sharing secrets and school lunches, but their friendship had been unraveling for months. Those who knew them said Madison had always harbored a quiet resentment toward Emily's popularity. When Madison and Tyler began appearing together in photos online, the betrayal was complete. Friends described Emily as hurt, humiliated, and angry, though she tried to keep her composure in public. The tension between the two girls became impossible to ignore after a heated confrontation at a weekend party, where harsh words and pointed accusations left both of them red-faced and fuming. Several people who were there remembered seeing Tyler standing nearby, smirking as if enjoying the spectacle. Investigators dug into the weeks following that confrontation and found a trail of digital hostility. Instagram stories, cryptic TikTok videos, and long, rambling group chat threads painted a picture of escalating drama. Some posts seemed designed to provoke Emily, featuring inside jokes and references only their circle of friends would understand. One message in particular caught detectives' attention. It mentioned teaching her a lesson and included a location that matched the wooded area where Emily's body was found. The more they uncovered, the clearer it became that Emily had been isolated. People she once considered friends had turned on her, choosing sides in what was being described as a messy love triangle. But what chilled investigators most was the sheer number of people who appeared involved in the harassment. It wasn't just Tyler and Madison. Other friends, acquaintances, and even people Emily barely knew had taken part in the online taunting. The cruelty was public, yet no one had stepped in to stop it. By the time detectives pieced together Emily's social world, it no longer seemed like the work of one or two angry teenagers. It looked like a coordinated effort, a dangerous mix of jealousy, peer pressure, and misplaced loyalty. The stage had been set, and all that was left was for someone to make the decision to take things too far. The investigation took a sharp turn when detectives obtained surveillance footage from the abandoned gas station near where Emily's body had been found. At first, they expected to see nothing more than a passing car or two on the quiet road that night. Instead, the footage revealed a sequence of vehicles arriving and leaving in a span of less than 20 minutes. The first car pulled into the cracked parking lot at 10:42 p.m., its headlights briefly illuminating the tree line before shutting off. Minutes later, two more cars followed, parking in a staggered formation as if to block any outside view. The grainy video showed the shapes of teenagers moving between the cars, their faces hidden by hoodies and shadows. Forensic analysts matched the vehicles to local owners, every one of them belonging to someone within Emily's extended social circle. Phone records painted an even clearer picture. In the hours before the murder, a group chat had been active, buzzing with over 60 messages exchanged between 9 individuals. The messages ranged from mocking jokes to specific directions about where to meet. One even confirmed that Emily was on her way after being convinced to come out under the guise of talking things over. Detectives were struck by the planning involved. This wasn't a spontaneous act of rage. There had been coordination, timing, and an unspoken understanding among those present about what would happen next. Some of the teens had been tasked with picking up Emily, others with ensuring she couldn't leave, and a few simply stood by to witness what they believed would be a confrontation. But the evidence didn't stop there. At the scene, investigators had found overlapping sets of shoe prints leading from the parking lot into the woods. The sizes varied, confirming multiple people had walked that path together. Tire tracks suggested at least 3 vehicles had left in different directions after the incident, likely in an attempt to scatter and avoid detection. Even more telling was a single sweatshirt recovered near the tree line, its fabric stained and torn. DNA testing would later reveal it belonged to one of the teens seen on camera. By the time detectives finished cross-referencing the footage, phone data, and physical evidence, the truth was undeniable. Emily hadn't stumbled into danger by chance. She had been lured, surrounded, and trapped in a place where escape was nearly impossible. The number of people involved shocked even the investigators. 9 teenagers in total, bound together by secrecy, misguided loyalty, and a shared decision that would change their lives forever. The truth of what happened in those final moments was pieced together through interviews, text records, and forensic evidence. And it was darker than anyone had imagined. According to several witness statements, the plan had initially been described as a way to scare Emily, to make her feel the humiliation they believed she had caused. But the tone of the night shifted almost immediately once she arrived. As she stepped out of the car, voices were raised, insults were hurled, and a ring of teenagers closed in around her. What might have started as verbal intimidation quickly escalated into shoving, then hitting. Emily tried to break free, sprinting toward the road, but the uneven terrain and surrounding woods trapped her. Some of the teens joined in the attack, while others lingered at the edges, frozen or unwilling to intervene. A few recorded snippets on their phones, though most deleted the footage within hours. The blows were relentless, each one fueled by weeks of tension, jealousy, and resentment. Forensic evidence later revealed that multiple people had left marks on Emily, making it impossible to single out one person as the sole cause of her injuries. It wasn't a single violent act, it was a collective assault. When Emily collapsed, struggling to breathe, there was a moment of hesitation among the group. Some suggested calling for help, but the fear of getting caught outweighed any trace of conscience. Instead, they left her there, lying motionless among the leaves and dirt. The group scattered, heading back to the safety of their cars and driving off in different directions. Some returned to the same party they had left earlier, blending into the crowd as if nothing had happened. Photos and videos taken later that night showed them laughing, dancing, and smiling, hiding the fact that just an hour before, they had been part of something irreversible. In the days that followed, silence became their unspoken pact. No one went to the police, and no one reached out to Emily's family. But guilt has a way of cracking even the strongest walls. When detectives began questioning them, small inconsistencies in their stories emerged. A few broke down under pressure, confessing pieces of what had happened. Others were betrayed by digital footprints, deleted messages recovered from cloud backups, location data from their phones, and the damning surveillance footage that showed them together at the scene. What stunned investigators wasn't just the brutality of the attack, but the casual indifference that followed. Emily's death hadn't united them in remorse. It had bound them together in a secret they were desperate to keep, no matter the cost. The arrests began early on a Tuesday morning, just 3 weeks after Emily's death. Police vehicles rolled quietly into neighborhoods across Brookfield, their flashing lights reflecting off mailboxes and front porches. Parents were woken by urgent knocks on their doors, stunned to find officers standing there with warrants in hand. One by one, the 9 teenagers were taken into custody, 5 boys and 4 girls, all between the ages of 16 and 18. The charges varied from first-degree murder to conspiracy and obstruction of justice, depending on their role that night. Word spread almost instantly through the town, sending shockwaves through classrooms, coffee shops, and church gatherings. The courtroom was packed on the day of the arraignment. Reporters from across the state filled the benches, scribbling notes as each defendant entered in handcuffs. Their faces were pale, their expressions a mixture of fear and defiance. Some avoided eye contact with Emily's grieving parents, who sat silently in the front row, clutching a framed photo of their daughter. The prosecution laid out a chilling timeline of events, supported by digital evidence, witness testimony, and forensic analysis. It became clear that this was not the result of a single moment of pure judgment. It was a carefully coordinated plan that spiraled into deadly violence. The trial gripped the nation, not only for the brutality of the crime, but for what it revealed about the darker side of teenage social dynamics. The love triangle between Emily, Tyler, and Madison had been the spark, but what followed was fueled by jealousy, peer pressure, and a desperate need for approval. The group mentality that night had stripped away individual responsibility, creating an environment where no one stepped forward to stop the attack. As the verdicts were read, the weight of the consequences finally settled in. Several of the teens were sentenced to decades in prison. Others received lengthy sentences for their roles in the planning and cover-up. For the families, there was no real victory. Emily was gone, and the futures of 9 young people had been destroyed. Brookfield would never fully recover from what happened. The wooded area behind the gas station became a place no one wanted to pass at night, and the story of Emily Hayes became a grim cautionary tale told to younger students. In the end, the tragedy was more than a story of betrayal in a love triangle. It was a reminder of how quickly a community can be torn apart when cruelty, pride, and silence outweigh compassion and truth.